Can you say welcome to the Sean Lowery Show in Dutch?
Welkom bij de Sean Lowery Show.
That sounded normal.
I know.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Sean Lowery Show podcast. I have with me today great guest, Rob Braake. Did I say that right?
You said it perfect.
Boom,
Happy to be here, Sean.
Awesome. Very excited to talk to you. So yeah, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? I have your bio, but it might be better coming from you.
Yeah, no problem. As you can probably tell from the accent, I am Dutch and the name indeed. Got a background in finance and strategy, spent the first few years of my career in banking, loved the content, hated the big organization. They were nice enough to send me to China for a project. And I absolutely loved the life and the energy and the entrepreneurship and the drive in China. So I did what every sane person would do is I quit the job in the bank to stay in China. Ran a technology and investment company there with a partner. Did that for 7 years before I realized that as a foreign company in China, you need to have really, really deep pockets to really make it work. And we didn't. So I decided to basically head back to finance and started a consulting business. Worked with a couple of SaaS companies, e-commerce business, usually foreign-owned companies in China. And that slowly evolved more and more into e-commerce. And every time I would meet somebody to work with, the first question I would ask is, show me the reports, show me the books, show me the reports. Where are we? Like, what are we working with? So how can we diagnose the problem? And 9 out of 10 times the answer was, well, we don't really have good books and reports. That's why we're talking with you. And that kind of led me to realize, well, that's good. I mean, happy that you guys see that there's a problem, but you shouldn't be paying a consultant $200 an hour to solve something that is very basic and foundational. So that led me to found Inside Matters a couple of years ago. By that time, I had left China, by the way. And basically what we do now is we work with e-commerce and agencies companies and help them translate the information that's hidden in their books into meaningful, actionable insights for founders.
Awesome. Yeah, you're a numbers guy. I love it. And you have a very global business experience, which is cool. Where do you live right now? Are you in the Netherlands?
I'm currently in the Netherlands because I have a 6-month-old boy who hadn't met his grandparents yet. But tomorrow I'm heading back to Hungary, where I'm currently living.
Hungary. Okay, cool. Yeah, you're all over the world. Have you spent time in America at all?
Last time I was in the US was in 2001, and I was supposed to go there this fall, but thanks to COVID, I mean,
right, made it
traveling is still.
We'll come back sometime. We'd love to have you.
I really want to get back there.
I know. I'm always interested in the international element. Do you speak like different languages?
Yeah, I speak Dutch, English. I understand German, and I still speak fairly decent Mandarin.
Okay. Can you say welcome to the Sean Lowery Show in Dutch?
Welkom bij de Sean Lowery Show.
That sounded normal.
I know.
Can you say it in Mandarin?
环境在那个 Sean Lowery Show.
All right, I love that. Maybe we'll open up the podcast with that. I know that's
then get somebody with a better accent.
Okay, I know it's a really difficult language. All right, but yeah, insight matters. So reporting insight, analysis for online businesses. I have an online business. I love online business. Do you consider online business? Do you mostly work with like e-commerce stores, or isn't everything an online business these days?
No, I think you and I are living in a bubble. Everything we consider e-commerce, but also digital marketing agencies. Those two are our biggest groups.
Agencies, okay.
Agencies, yes. Because they have a lot of data, financial issues as well.
Mm.
But everything that you and I touch is probably a digital business. But in the broader picture, if you talk with your aunts and uncles, they're not working in a digital business.
Right. Yeah. Like we were born and bred selling online, and sometimes people will ask, like, do you guys ever want to open up a store or a real? I'm like, no, not really. I mean, we can sell to anybody across the country, across the world. Like while we're sleeping, we don't have to. It's just much better to sell online. So I mean, I love online business, and it's obviously where the future's going. So, and it's good for tracking numbers. I'm sure you don't have to deal with like cash in the cash register. Makes it a lot easier to track. But numbers are so important in business. I've done a lot of dumb shit in my life, and I've got my business back on track every time I start honing in on like what's important, where's the most important thing, the numbers. So I love this conversation.
It's such a shame though that, and what you describe is that what happens to most. You first gotta do dumb shit, then you realize it's important, and the next time you avoid it.
Right, exactly. So it's like something that maybe people, if you're listening and you're starting a business, like pay attention to that early on. But that actually leads to like, all right, so I have a good amount of questions like kind of about the numbers. But what if you're a young entrepreneur, you're just starting your business, and you don't really have any data yet, you don't know what your numbers are. Maybe you don't even have any sales yet. Like how should someone who's just starting their business, a young entrepreneur, look at the limited data they have or the numbers? Like what if you don't have any? Then what do you do?
What you do is two things. One, you make sure that you start building the data, because you wouldn't be the first one that starts tracking data once you're a couple of years in and there's decent sales. Start at yesterday. Second is make sure that you religiously separate your personal finances and your business finances. For tax purposes, for management purposes, for your personal stress and personal sanity level, keep them separated religiously. That's the easy thing.
Different bank accounts. Sometimes that's hard to do when you're just starting because you have like maybe $400 and you got to buy something for your business and you only have one bank account. Like, so would that be the most strict way to do that? It's just like separate bank accounts, separate spreadsheets, separate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you don't have if you have a legal entity, if you are incorporated or an LLC, of course you have your own bank account there. But if you still do it on your personal accounts and you're just getting started, open a Mercury account, open whatever online bank, keep it separated.
I think that's great advice. Keep it separate. Even if you don't have tons of revenue coming in early on, start, even if it's just for the sake of doing it in your head, separate them out. I like that. That's good. That's good advice. So yeah, and start tracking data early. I mean, it's going to be important down the road. I mean, you have to figure out what your niche is. You have to figure out what you're selling, kind of get a feel for it. But once you take off, you're going to need those numbers. So start thinking about it. I think that's good for young entrepreneurs to hear. So I saw you had a blog. It was like 11 reasons why e-commerce companies fail. And two of them were low margins and low prices. And I thought that was interesting. And I have a question about that. We do a lot for our business. We sell women's clothing. We're doing pretty well. We have lots of sales. But we do a lot of like discounts and promotions and sales. And I think our customers are trained, I think, to kind of wait for something to go on sale. Yeah. And it works. Then we're like final hours of the sale. Everyone gets on and gets it. Like that stuff works. But it's great for volume. It's great for getting new customers. But the margins, I guess, are a little smaller. Like, do you have any advice for discounting versus not discounting when you're selling products and I guess even services?
I don't want to touch on to discount or not to discount because that's more a marketing decision than a finance decision.
Fair.
Because from a finance perspective, if you list your product at $100 or whether you list it at 150, but you discount it to 100, I don't care. For me, it's the same. So it's more, if you want to give a discount, raise your prices and then have that sale and have that discount.
So essentially it would be the same price then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I do. I do that a little
the
bit.
customer perception is very different because they see the sale. And of course, you need to have the brand and the quality and the experience to legitimize that higher price. But from a finance perspective, I care about what you actually realize, whether that's discounted or list price.
Right. You don't care.
I don't care.
So how do people get in trouble with low margins? Do they buy a product for $20 and sell it for 15? Because that's not good business. I mean, I don't think anyone is doing that. What's the problem they run into?
No, I haven't. I don't think I've ever met anybody doing that, indeed.
I hope not.
But what they do, if they buy it for 20 and they sell it for 40, you may think they have a 50% margin, and they do. But if you have to spend 40% of your revenue in advertising costs on Amazon or on Facebook, then you do have a problem, because that means you only have 10% left for all your other costs and your profit. So if your customer acquisition cost is low, sure, 50% gross margin works. If you don't have a lot of repeat sales and your customer acquisition cost is high, 50% gross margin is too low. Right. So it's very easy to get into trouble with too low margins if you don't know your acquisition cost, if you don't know the lifetime value of your customer.
Right. And like the fixed costs, like the fixed expenses, you factor that in. But for me, and I think that's interesting that you said that, the ad spend is the one thing that, you know, you're always looking at. So like my KPIs, my key performance indicator on a daily basis is ad spend. I mean, for us, if it's like 25% or lower, that's great. If it's like 35% or higher, I'm in trouble, and I have to monitor that. Is that very common, that the difference between your margins is how much you spend on advertising?
That is very common, and I'm always slightly unhappy with that. Because what you're saying with that is, if you would raise your prices, you will allow yourself to spend more in advertising. So you're playing then a push for volume. Right. But if you raise your prices and you keep your advertising costs the same, you have more profit.
That's true. So basically the problem that you're saying, the reason why you don't like it, is because people are just trying to grow. And that is when they're not concerned about margins. They're just concerned about the sexy metric, like revenue. Exactly.
And you're going to overspend on advertising. Even though that's the one you're managing, if you put the bar, you may put the bar too high.
Revenue is such a sexy metric, though. You know, like it's hard not to.
It's overrated.
It's overrated. Like,
yes.
If you look at a business, like that's the first question I ask. I'm like, oh, okay, what's the revenue? It gives you like an idea of like where they're at. But I guess that's why it's sexy, because who cares what someone has perception of you if you have high revenue? What really matters is the grit and the profit.
Exactly. Well, worse. Revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity, but cash flow is reality. And revenue, it's sexy. It's easy to compare and everybody understands it. Mm-hmm. And it's less sensitive than profits. Because if you'd ask like, hey, how big is your business? Well, I make $1 million profits. That is much more personal what you as the owner get from it. You give a lot more information the others.
That's and so it's nicer to say. I'll spit my revenue out like all the time. I'm never like, you know, dropping like, this is my profit, this is my profit. Because then it says like, you know, you're right. It's much more personal.
Yeah, because that's what you take home or what you reinvest.
Right.
And the revenue is like, no, I run a big business. We're successful. You may be making a loss. Nobody would know that.
Right. So yeah, too many business owners are obsessed with that. I understand that. And like, I get it, but I love what you said. You said revenue is vanity. Profit is sanity. And cash flow is what?
Is reality. Reality.
Cash flow.
Yeah.
Like cash flow. The way I look at kind of cash flow is like, I have a spreadsheet, and I have like, and I just kind of know like how much cash I have. And I have like one bottom line number that has like everything kind of factored into it. Is that the correct way to look at cash flow? Like, how is there like a formula? What is cash flow? How do you define it?
Actually, there are 3 types of cash flow. Cash flow from operations, that's the most important one. So let me cover that one last. Cash flow from financing, that is basically how much cash do you get from the bank? Do you pay to the bank, or do you get from Shopify Capital or from your Amazon loan? And how much do you pay back to that?
Right.
And cash flow from investing, which is not really relevant for most e-commerce guys, because that's about investing in stocks and warehouses and these kind of things. Cash flow from operations means how much money do you actually receive from your customers in your bank account, and how much do you pay out to suppliers, your vendors, your team, marketing spend, all these things. The difference between those two, that's the cash flow from operations. That is in e-commerce the number one thing to manage, because that needs to be above zero.
Above zero.
Above zero. The higher, the better. But given that if you grow really fast, you need to buy more inventory,
right,
you're going to spend a lot more upfront. So balancing that timing of the cash flow and your purchase orders so that your cash flow stays at the very least neutral, that is the big difficult game in e-commerce.
That's right, because like I've recently bought a building. We buy a lot of inventory. In my sense, the cash flow number kind of looks a little different when I'm factoring that in. Do people look at cash flow as like a balance sheet item, or like I don't think I do it like the proper financial way. I kind of have my own little system for it. Like
usually if you work with Xero or QuickBooks, they have a separate report statement of cash flows. That's the one that it's the hardest one to read of the three. Like you have a P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. The cash flow one is the least intuitive and the hardest one to read, but it's probably the most important one.
Okay. All right. That's good. You make P&Ls for companies, like profit and loss statements?
We do, but what we do more than that is we translate them into KPIs, into visual reports, and we run the analysis on top of that. So we don't only tell our clients like, hey, your revenue went up. We dive in and say, hey, your revenue for this group went up. Your revenue for this product group went down. Your margins on this product group are declining. So you probably want to spend less marketing on that and more marketing effort on that.
That's valuable. That's really valuable. I have a bookkeeper. It's outsourced. They're great. It's all digital, but they don't know what product groups I'm selling. They're not interested in that stuff. They're just trying to get me the accounting acceptable statements. And the other problem I have with those reports, and I'm curious what you do with your clients, I'm always mad. All right, if the month ends on the 31st, and then I get my books like the 20th of the next month or the 15th of the next month, I'm like, okay, I can't use this for decision making, so maybe it is just for taxes. So I have like my own ways to track it. I've always had issues with bookkeepers getting me my P&L at a time where it's too late.
Yeah. You're not.
How soon do you get them their information?
Well, first of all, it depends. If we are also doing the books, we deliver before the 10th of the month, including the reporting, like including all the analysis, including the visuals, including everything. Because, like you said, if you get it on the 20th, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do anymore that month that's going to have an impact.
Okay.
So if you get it on the 20th, either talk with your bookkeeper or change the bookkeeper, because you really want to have the P&L. Depending on weekends, etc., you want to have it on the 5th or the 6th or so.
Of course, yeah. If I pressure them, I usually get it faster. But I'm sure for your business, if you grow and get more clients, it's harder to get them all of it faster, right?
No, it's about good planning and it's about managing. So most bookkeepers do the books on a monthly basis, and then you have everything in the beginning of the month. We do it on a weekly basis.
Okay.
So at the end of the month, there's only a few things that we have to do to close the books and run the analysis. Second thing is, we don't wait until the 2nd or the 3rd of the month to start asking you like, hey, can you maybe give us the bank statements?
That's great.
We have proactive access to everything. And the few things we need manual from our clients, on the 29th, you have an email from us. Please remind us to send us this on the 1st.
I like that.
The later you send it, you're in the back of the queue. So if you want it fast, you got to give us the information fast.
I like that. And I love that you go the extra level with the reporting and breaking it down. How often do most business owners or agencies or look at this stuff? Weekly, daily, monthly? I look daily at all my stuff. Like my revenue, is that too often?
Probably yes.
I got nothing else to do.
You have a ton of other things to do.
True. I mean, yeah.
No, I mean certain metrics. There are certain things you want to check on a daily level, but that's more on the operational level. Like, hey, is the ACOS today good? Is this ad group doing well?
Right.
We try to look a little bit more strategic, high over, and then we think monthly is the right frequency to really sit down and say, are we on track? Are we hitting our annual budgets? Are we are all our product groups delivering?
Okay.
At that point, you don't look at this ad campaign versus the other ad campaign. You look one level higher on a company level.
That makes sense.
And then monthly is the right frequency.
That makes sense. Okay. So you said revenue is the most overrated metric that you see. Yeah. Is there one that is the most underrated metric?
Yeah, cash flow.
Cash flow.
Absolutely.
All right,
hands down, cash flow. And especially in e-commerce, every time we see it all the time. People talk with their suppliers and they push for a lower price. Like, hey, if we buy more, can we get 2% or 3% more discount? What they forget is that if you buy more, you have to pay more upfront. And that spending that money upfront has a cost because you can't spend it on advertising at that point. You can't spend it on your own salary. So there's usually more to be gained by saying, hey, how about we promise you we order more this year, but you give us better payment terms instead of we buy more upfront.
Like 60 days instead of 30 days.
If you can get to be honest, most people start with, hey, we down pay 50, maybe you can go to down pay 20. And then instead of having the 50 at delivery, maybe we do another 30 at delivery and then the rest at net 30.
Yeah.
Like just spreading it out, pushing the payment terms back. That has so much impact on the cash flow of an e-commerce business. That makes all the difference. If you can move your payments to your supplier to so far back that your customer buys from you before you pay the supplier, that's when that's the sweet spot.
That makes sense. Because you always think about, revenue, expenses, higher revenue, lower expenses, but you're not thinking about cash flow in that sense, and you might get yourself in trouble. All right, I'm gonna do more effort on focusing on that number, getting longer terms and things like that. So that's the most underrated metric.
Absolutely,
business is cash flow. Okay, and especially for e-commerce because of the vendor situation, right?
Because you always have inventory, you have lead times, you have shipping times. So all that time, that if you down pay 30% or 50%, their production time, you're funding it. The shipping time, you are funding it. The time you have it in the warehouse, you are funding it.
Right.
Try to make your supplier fund that instead of you.
Okay, that makes sense. That's good advice. Who makes more money, the agencies or the e-commerce people?
You can't say it either of those two. The better question is, who makes more money? Those people that are on top of their numbers and on top of their game, or those that are purely focused on marketing or purely focused on sales?
Fair enough. So no matter regardless of the business, because that's a big decision for some entrepreneur to make who's just starting. Like, do I want to go do a service and have a clients, or do I want to sell product and have customers? It's two completely different routes when it comes to marketing, when it comes to how you build your business. That's why I was wondering if one of them on average is makes more money, because people might be thinking about that are listening. What kind of business do I want to get into? Services, products. But you're saying it doesn't matter as long as you
never ever choose a business just because you think it makes more money. The one thing that makes the difference is founder fit. Does the business fit you? I mean, I'm running a high touch, high value service company. That fits me. If I were to run an e-commerce business, it would be hitting the ground in no time. I don't understand consumers. I don't like to work with consumers. So put me in a consumer-facing company, and it's going to be a disaster. So the
Okay.
question is not which makes more money. The question is, where do your skills and your value come at hand? That's where you're going to make the most money.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, don't look at it, but we're gonna make more money. That's true because I used to do like I do t-shirts and I used to like kind of sell to teams and groups and I was a lot of like phone calls and more like clients. And I didn't like that as much as selling to the consumers because I like how it's all online. You know, you put a
Yeah.
link out there to an audience, they buy, you wake up, you see what your revenue was while you're sleeping. I found that was a much better fit for me. When I made that transition early in my career, I was so happy. So I guess that's
So
what I did.
which of the two work better?
The
The
founder
one
fit
that
that's
you
better
like.
for me
Yeah.
is e-commerce products, B to C. That fits for me. So that's the most important question for entrepreneurs.
That,
That makes sense. That makes sense. Is your job stressful? Do you get stressed out?
the first 10 days of the month, yes, because we wanted to get everything out on time with the right quality level. We have good processes, but still it's always stressful too, because you always want to check like, hey, is this actually accurate? Did we do this good?
Okay, that
So
makes
yeah,
sense.
those first 10 days are stressful. The rest of the month, quite okay.
Yeah. I think like stress is an interesting topic just for business owners or people who you hear entrepreneurs, how hard it is. You have to deal with failure and deal with problems all the time. Some people are cut out for it. Even the Olympian, I don't know if you heard about this, the girl Simone Biles, she was like the top gymnast and she just said I can't take it right now and she stopped competing. Yeah,
Wow.
do you have any thoughts on that?
I can I can only imagine the amount of pressure somebody like her is
Oh yeah,
under. I mean,
definitely.
I feel the pressure from my business, from my team, from my family, etc. Somebody like that who's representing the country and under international scrutiny, headline press every day you do something good or bad. I don't even know how to perceive that pressure.
Right. It's hard to
How to
perceive.
keep how to keep your sanity in that kind of
Right. It's hard
situation.
to perceive. Actually, we love Simone Biles around here. She placed 3 orders with our company, and we were so pumped. She bought monogrammed sweatshirt and sweatpants. We were so pumped when we saw the order. We Googled like her house because we got her address, but she got a nice house. Let me say that she's making a lot of money. She does endorsement for like Oreos and all these energy drinks. I was very surprised by that. And the one thing I said was like, yes, from our perspective, business, entrepreneurship, this is a higher level that it's hard to perceive. But I do like look at those people differently. Like a top athlete, like you expect them when the pressure's on to perform. So I was very surprised and thought that I was like, come on, like you got to go out there and compete. Like it's supposed to be difficult. It's once every 4 years. But that just made me think about like stress lately and you know, what if I just stopped running my business? It would go under. Like you have to be able to deal with stress as an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, right? You for 10 days of the month, but when you're founding, you're just starting up. It's hard.
it's hard. And well, I got shaped quite a bit by the first years in China. And when I started there, I told myself I have to be willing to eat just bare noodles for 5 years because it's going to take 5 years before I'm going to make a decent living out of it. And
Right.
if you start the business with the expectation that, oh, in 6 months I'm gonna make 500,000 a year, basically, you're going to set up yourself up for failure and it's going to be demotivating. Anticipate it's going to be a rough track.
Yeah.
And if you're ready for that, you can deal with the setbacks. The stress is manageable. And if you hit success, it's even better. It's even sweeter.
Right. I think you should tell that to Simone Biles. I'm just kidding. You know,
Damn.
like you
Oh,
expect it to be
God.
pressureful, but I
Yeah.
hear you. I hear you. I'm actually curious about. So how long did you live in China?
I lived in China for almost 8 years.
That's a long time, and you
Yeah.
seem to really enjoy your experience there.
I loved it.
You
I
loved it there.
absolutely loved it. The drive and the energy, like when you walk on the street, you feel that people are building something, that people are
Yeah,
eager.
really.
And for local people there, the pressure is killing because if you don't do this better, then the guy next door will do it better than you.
Mm,
So they have a lot of pressure. And me being a foreigner, I didn't have the pressure that comes with that, but I do have the vibe. If I would leave the office there at 10, half the people would still be there.
Yeah. Wow.
And that gives a certain vibe and a certain energy and a certain
good
drive.
energy.
Yes.
And you like that. In America, I mean, China is a great country, and like they're kind of like our enemy a little bit, just because like they're doing so well. And like, I guess if people are trying to like speak poorly of them, they say it's like a communist country. You don't have any freedoms. Like the way you're describing it sounds so much different. It sounds like it's like kind of like America, high energy, like go, let's build. Like is the perception of no freedom, communist, like bad place to live, is that just like propaganda? Or it's I know there's a lot of different areas.
There's a lot of as always, it's super nuanced. It really depends on where you live, what your job is, what your life is. For normal people, I don't think there's such a big difference. There are certain restrictions in terms of internet freedom and democracy, etc. But if you look at daily life, that nightmare picture that you see in the media, no, that's bullshit.
Okay, that's bullshit. Interesting.
That's bullshit.
So like they have I mean, I know they're building, and I know they're creating, and I know they are producing big time. And that generally comes from like a great spirit, and that's what you sensed. Like, don't they like not allow companies to grow or something? If they're too big, the government will like come in and kind of take it or something like that. Is that a misperception as well?
For those, there are a couple of tech companies that are really big that have gotten into trouble recently. I don't really know what the story is there.
Yeah.
If you're a local entrepreneur and you're building your own business and you're not doing anything politically stupid, you don't have any issue there.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, like there's Alibaba and like Baidu. They're so big that the regular entrepreneur. So there is an entrepreneurial spirit there. Like
massive.
Some kid in high school is like, I'm gonna start a business. I'm gonna find a customer. I'm gonna find a market. I'm gonna find clients. I'm gonna serve them. Like that spirit that lives on the streets.
When I was there, the shared bicycles was one of the things that was up and coming. So you had one company that did it. That was fairly successful. That's got some traction. 3 months later, there are 10 different bikes on the street. Everybody had their own bikes, got VC funded, and had a massive operational rollout. And of course, I mean, that's kind of like Uber and Lyft. It's a winner take all, or maybe two companies survive. So most of those bike companies went bust. But in 3 months, 10 of those companies have the scale and the operational rollout and the operational capacity. That is insanely fast.
That is. And obviously there was a market for the bikes. People wanted to get on the bike. So like that market was recognized, and everyone just started competing and doing it, and then a couple survived. It sounds like it sounds like America a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thanks for like changing my perception on China a little bit. That's good to know. That's good to know. And I know how it's just so massive. It's so massive. Is everything? I don't know exactly where you were, but is it kind of like here would be like New York City or Los Angeles, where everyone's tightly packed and close? Is it like that there with all the people they have?
I think that the first tier cities, especially Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, they have a massive appeal for entrepreneurs. That's where most get to. And then you have like the provincial capitals, vaguely comparable to state capitals in the US, I guess.
Okay.
They have a regional attraction, but Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen is where the magic happens for the really ambitious ones.
Okay. Yeah, and as far as what you do, like the numbers, the business numbers, I mean, numbers are universal, right? All the same principles apply to any company across the world with what you do.
Yep.
There's not any nuances between like the Netherlands or Germany and China when it comes to data analysis. It's all the same.
There is some nuance there, and that is tax. Because tax rules differ, and tax rules have a really big impact, or can have a really big impact on how to read the numbers. If a country taxes capital gains, or if a company has sales tax or VAT, makes a difference in how you organize it, or how you set it up, or what you want to push on.
I hate having to consider tax implications when I'm running my business, because it's like it's unnatural. It's like something that comes from the outside that you have to factor in. It's annoying, but that's the nuance.
It's annoying, but it's the one thing, and especially for you, the owner, on a personal level, you want to manage properly for two reasons. One, if you screw it up, the IRS is the last one you want to have an issue with, because they're not going to let go. And second of all, if you manage it properly, if you pick the right corporate incorporation form, the right states, and you set up everything properly, it's going to save you a shit ton of money down the road if you do well.
Yeah, right. And it's like, I don't know, that's not advice I would give to someone just started a business. Like, think about the tax implication. First, you got to find your market, your product, but like that's maybe like level 2. And if you do that right at level 2, it can really benefit at level 3, 4, 5.
When you start getting some traction and you see like, hey, this business has potential, that's the moment to start thinking about, so where do we incorporate? How are we going to organize this? Before that, it doesn't make much of a difference.
Right, exactly. Interesting.
And if you do it too late, it's going to become more complicated and more costly to adjust it.
And does your company like factor in that stuff? Like, I mean, if you're looking at, ad spend and product sets and revenue and expenses, like, do you give advice on that stuff, or is that kind of like for a different person than a data analysis?
In general terms, we do. Specifics, we can't. I mean, right. We work with clients globally, and we know the basics of the US laws, and we know the basics of like the big states. But if you're a e-commerce company focused in Michigan and you're only selling there, the specific rules there, right. No, we don't know.
Okay, it makes sense. And you work with a lot of companies in the US?
I think about half of our clients are in the US.
Okay. Here's a random question I have about that, and I'm always curious about this. We're mostly domestic. Like, we sell some international, mostly in the United States. But I mean, if someone from another country purchases one of our products, like our average order value is like $38, right? And it's a couple of sweatshirts or something like that. The shipping is so much more expensive to ship internationally, that I almost feel like it doesn't like make sense for the customer. How do your businesses handle the international shipping on small products?
If the target market is in the US and you do free shipping in the US, charge overseas for shipping. If you or your
usually
margins
like
have to be
$25. It's like $25.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that deter the international person that's purchasing? They're gonna be like, I want this, but $25 for shipping. Like, come on.
So there are two options there. Either if you focus more on that particular market as well, and you put some inventory there, so you have the scale and you can sell there without shipping costs as well, or you have to have a product where your margins are so high that you can absorb the $25 shipping costs.
Right.
But if you're selling a $35 or $38 product, and let's say you have 50% gross margin, you're not going to absorb that shipping cost.
No.
Because you like the customer overseas, but not nice enough to subsidize him.
Exactly.
So if it's not your target market, they're welcome to buy from you. But if they walk away because of the shipping cost, that's too bad. You can't avoid that.
Exactly. So that's why we're mostly focused on domestic. Also, we sell personalized items, so we couldn't even store inventory. And I always think about, opening up internationally, and it would have to be something where you could do one of those two things, like a refrigerator, a couch, something that's more expensive, that the shipping is just a small percentage of it, or put it in some type of like fulfillment warehouse in that area so that the shipping costs are lower. That makes sense. That makes sense. So it is an issue for me.
What you could consider is seeing if you can find a partner in that country that can personalize it for you and then ship it out.
Okay. Then I can make business trips there and check on their quality, make sure they're doing it the right way. And then
and you can
be a business traveler.
Exactly. I don't know if you want that now, but you could.
Yeah. You're saying you could expense it. I actually hate when people tell me what you think about this. Like, when people say like, "Oh yeah, I got a car, but it was I expensed it." I'm like, cool. It still costs money. Like it's still like, just because I have to pay for a flight, I can expense it, but it's still money. Like,
but you get a 20% discount.
Okay, on your you get a 20% discount on your tax bill, but you're still paying the 80%. You're still making the purchase.
Yeah, but 20% of it is paid because you don't have to pay tax over that money.
True. Yeah, I just feel like a lot of people, like, they're just starting their business and they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, I got it. I'll expense it, and they like sound cool saying that. I'm like, okay, well, it still costs money, but fair enough.
And it only counts as a good deal if you're actually profitable.
Right.
If you're making a loss and you're not paying tax, then what's the use of expensing it?
True. Oh man. So you see a lot of different businesses. Do you have any, like, like you said, you were in America 2001, and now 2021, like over 20 years, it's shifted, right? It's changed a lot. Everyone's like, more people are selling online. Do you see any big shifts coming in the next 20, 30 years to pay attention to? Like, what do you think will be the biggest change in, like, business and industry in 30-year span, something like that?
To be honest, in the e-commerce space, for me, that's really hard to say, other than it's going to digitize and automate even more. And you have to be even better in standing out and giving the customer experience that people really get the loyalty to you as a brand.
Loyalty.
How and what, that's up to you guys as marketeers, because again, that's out of our expertise. Right. In the financial side, anything that relates to bookkeeping is going to be more and more automated. So the lower end of the things that we are doing, 10 years from now, we won't be able to do that anymore, because that's going to be automated and commoditized. And does
that make you nervous about your business in the future, or you still provide value with those
That's exactly
metrics?
Why we focus on the translation, the interpretation of it, getting the numbers and the nice charts. Anybody can do that. But the story, like, what does it mean for you? And if your goal is to build a lifestyle business or a $100 million business, what does this number mean to you? That translation and that interpretation, that's where our value is. And that is hard, if not impossible, to fully automate.
Right? Because you're looking at, one, what do you want? Where do you want to be? Yeah. Some people, that you can't automate going into someone's brain and learning what their goals are. So you got that part down, and then all the specifics of it. Yeah, that's the whole point. You can't automate it. So you're protecting your business by making that one of your core features as financial reporting does get automated.
Yeah. And
makes sense.
And we're happy with that. As long as the quality of the data that we get is good, we can add value. I'm not worried about that. My biggest frustration there is that I see companies that work with so-called AI tools now already. And they're kind of stupid AI. They're just taking historic data, making a trend analysis, and extrapolating that into the future. That's not AI. That's just basic math.
Yeah.
And that gives the wrong sense of security. So it always takes us a bit of effort to get people out of that and realize, no, that's just, they have this line, they extrapolate it.
Right.
But you are planning 3 new different product launches. So for you, this line is never going to happen.
And how would the AI ever know that? You could input it or something, but...
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can input it, and we're working actually with a software company now to develop something that we can automate that partially and make it easier to work with.
That's cool.
That's going to be super cool.
Yeah.
I didn't want to tell you guys that yet because we're planning to launch at the end of the year. So,
all right. Well, you dropped it. So you're dropping secrets here. But I mean, it's so crazy about thinking about the automation in the future. I mean, how it's going to affect jobs, how it's going to affect industries. But it's coming, right? Like you see that, like basically if you have a job, think about, can a machine do it? Can a robot do it? And if the answer is yes, and you're young, like you should think about that, right? Like how you can find value in an automated society.
And at the same time, keep in mind that the bubble that we talked about in the absolute beginning, the bubble like, oh, isn't everything a digital business now? We are the front runners.
Okay.
And not my business, but you, me, the audience.
Right.
Even though for us, we may feel like, wow, everybody is in this space already. No, we're still the front runners. We're still early. And the competition is going to get brutal, but we're ahead.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I do sometimes feel like, yeah, I'm like a little behind. There's so many great companies, like there's so many great things, but I am in that bubble of like the entrepreneurship world, like high tech, being interested in the current events. Most people don't even know what a podcast is, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay, that's great. So you're excited for the future?
I am super excited. Absolutely.
I have a Tesla car, and it's like
Ooh,
it has
nice.
it has the driverless feature,
Yep.
and it's amazing. I'm so excited about it. Like, would you get a driverless car? If you, like, are you interested in that?
Um, mm, no, I love driving,
Ah, one of those
but
guys.
no, I'm the numbers guy. I look at what would I want to own a car? No, because then I'm going to pay for the whole damn depreciation.
Okay, so just the car in general.
I'm more of an Uber guy.
Okay, fair enough. But if the
I
Uber,
only want to. I
what if the
only
Uber
want
came to pick you up and there was no
perfect,
driver?
perfect.
Okay, fair enough. So on the side of the financing the car thing, that's different. But
Yeah,
I'm telling you,
the tech part, yes, but I don't
it's
want to
really
pay for
cool.
it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It is really cool. It's one of those things that like is a little futuristic that I'm a bad driver, and I just like this is probably going to be safe for me and cool for me. So it's one thing that I got that is it's really cool. It's awesome. Um, yeah, Rob, dude, you're the man. This has been great. Where should everyone like go follow you, go find you? What do you want them to do?
Best is probably to either go to connectrob.com. That way you can easily reach out to me personally, or go to financeinsightmatters.com and for the general company, or we have a discovery project called the game plan. Go to financeinsightmatters.com/Sean Lowery
Oh,
to find a nice discount there for your audience. And connecting with LinkedIn is always welcome as well.
okay. All right. We'll link that up with my name as the discount. That's cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Great insight. Love talking about this stuff. And you the man. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thanks.